Alright, today I'm going to replace the serpentine belt and belt tensioner on this 2007 Pontiac Vibe. The belt tensioner has actually been chattering over the last couple of weeks and needs to be replaced. You can kind of see back here the rear part of the tensioner is mounted kind of up behind the engine, and you can kind of see that part of it there is all greasy and oily, so something in there has failed. Alright, so in order to change the tensioner, I think what has to happen is, first of all, the belt needs to be removed, and the way to do that is to release the tensioner by putting a socket and breaker bar on this sort of welded on nut right here. It looks like a nut probably through the camera, but it's actually part of the tensioner lever. And I'll just put a socket and a breaker bar on there and pivot it out of the way, and then the belt can be removed. And once the belt is removed, then it's going to be necessary to actually loosen this engine mount right here on the passenger side, and there's 3 bolts. I've sprayed them down with a little bit of PB Blaster, although I don't know that that's going to really help at this point. They're pretty clean bolts. But there's one there, there's one kind of underneath the power steering fluid reservoir there, and then there's one in the back as well. And once that's loosened, then I'll jack the engine up a little bit so that the bolt that actually holds the tensioner on down there can be removed. Right now it can be loosened, but it can't quite be taken out of there because it'll hit the frame rail. So like I said, the engine will have to kind of be jacked up about 1 inch or so in order for that to clear the frame rail. And then there's also one bolt on the back of the tensioner there on that mechanism that'll need to come off. And then I think it'll just slide right out. Alright, so here's the belt and the tensioner that I ended up getting from Amazon.com. I priced this out a few different places, Rock Auto, Napa, and I think Advanced Auto. And between the free shipping and discounted prices, I got the best deal for the money on Amazon. I think there were a few cheaper options on Rock Auto, cheaper option parts, but I wanted to go with a Delco branded part. I felt that would be a little bit better quality than some of the other options. But of course there were more expensive options as well. This was sort of a middle of the road. I think it cost somewhere around 80 or 90 bucks. I don't remember exactly now, but at any rate, I'll go ahead and open this up so we can see. Okay, here's the belt tensioner out of the box. It looks like the one that's on the car, so that should be the right part. Hopefully it fits. Of course the belt, we already talked about that. And then here's some of the tools that I've got kind of lined up to do the job. I think these are the only things I'm going to need, but of course you never know until you get into it. But at any rate, I guess the first tool I'm going to use is the breaker bar here with the 19mm socket to sort of activate the tensioner, and that'll go on this boss or pseudo nut, whatever you want to call it, and that'll help pivot the tensioner so I can get the belt out of the way. And of course this pipe will go on the end of the tensioner to give it more leverage and make it a little easier to operate. And then I've got this extension with a 14mm socket on it for the engine mount. I think those 3 bolts are 14mm heads, and then the 13mm wrench is for the rear part of the tensioner that mounts to the rear of the engine, this part. And then this 17mm wrench is for the tensioner bolt that holds that on. Okay, so I've got the socket and the breaker bar on the tensioner lever, and then I've got the extension pipe on. And to loosen the belt, all we have to do is put some pressure here on the breaker bar, and you should be able to see the belt kind of loosen up. And now with it loose, I should be able to fish it out over the pulley for the alternator and then out of the way and up out of the engine. So I'm going to put the camera down and give that a shot. Alright, now that I've got the belt off, I think the next thing I'll do is release these engine mount bolts so that I can jack the engine up a little bit and get that kind of out of the way and ready to remove the first tensioner bolt. Okay, so I've got the engine jacked up a little bit, and you can see sort of the arrangement here. I've got this piece of wood, actually it's a piece of trim board underneath the oil pan, well, between the jack and the oil pan, to kind of distribute the forces so that I'm not denting the oil pan with the jack. But you want to just jack it up enough to get the engine out of the way, and of course it's going to lift the car a little bit too. But I tried not to put too much force on this. I don't want to flatten my oil pan out or anything like that. But you should be able to see here that I've got the engine up a little bit, and I believe it's up enough for that bolt to clear the frame rail. I may need to go up just a tad bit more, but I think this will do it. Okay, you can see I've got the bolt loosened and on its way out, and I think there's just enough room there for it to clear the frame rail. And what I ended up doing was I used my 17mm wrench to loosen the bolt, and I ended up having to put my extension pipe on the end of the wrench. But once I got it cracked loose, I used this ratchet wrench. This is actually an SAE size 11/16 because my 17mm ratchet wrench has gone missing. But if you happen to have a 17mm ratchet wrench and an extension for it, or a pipe or something, that'll probably be the best tool to use to get this to kind of come out. Okay, and I've got the nut on the back of the tensioner pretty much off, and the best tool for that was my 12mm ratchet wrench. I think earlier in the video I said that might have been a 13mm wrench to use on that, but it actually is it's actually a 12. So I used that ratchet wrench and was able to spin that off. Alright, so I've got the two tensioners here side by side. Obviously the old one is the dirty one on the bottom, and the new one is this one on the top. And they look about the same. There's some minor differences. You know, the most noticeable being the kind of the pulley mounting arrangement here. But otherwise I think they're about the same. Look about the same size, about the same height and everything. So this looks like it should bolt in and be the right part. And then here's the old belt, and you can see that this was pretty much ready for replacement. Probably should have been replaced a while ago. Car's got, I think, about 95,000 miles on it, and this is the original belt. So time for that to go. So I guess now we'll put the new tensioner. Okay, so I've got the new tensioner kind of fished in there between the engine mount and the engine. And the easiest thing to do is just kind of fish it in from the front under the mount. Might have been able to go in up top here, but some of the hoses and things seemed like they were in the way. And then I put the back part on first up on that stud. And now what I'll do is grab the bolt that goes through the center part of the tensioner and then just fish that in and tighten it up. And then I'll put the nut on the back of the tensioner, and then it should be installed. Okay, so I've got the bolt on for the main part of the tensioner, and I've put the nut on for the back part. And I would say if you're worried about specific torque values, you could check the factory service manual. I've just tightened these up by feel, you know, tight enough to make me feel comfortable, but not so tight that I'm stripping threads or elongating bolts or any of that sort of thing. So those are in. So now the next thing to do is lower the engine back down and bolt the engine mount back down to the front. Okay, so the engine mount's back in place. All three bolts are tightened up. And again, if you want actual torque specs, the factory service manual will have those. I've just tightened them up kind of by feel. And one other trick that I did when I put this in is before lowering the engine down, I put the bolts and started the bolts first. and got them just kind of loosely in the holes just to keep everything aligned, and then I let the engine down just so that the engine mount wouldn't kind of go out of alignment, and then I tightened everything up. So now that that's all in place, I guess it's time to try and fish the belt in here now. Alright, so I've got the belt more or less routed on the engine here, and I found the best way to do this was to just kind of I kind of fished the belt in from the top, and then I jacked the car just enough to crawl under it, and was able to kind of fish the belt around from the top and the bottom, and started kind of from the left, worked my way to the right, and now I've got the belt ready to go onto the alternator there. And I just followed the routing diagram from the owner's manual, and this is page, of course it's sunk below there, this is page 371 on the owner's manual. And so now what I'll do is I've got the tensioner ready to go, I've got my pipe and my breaker bar set up, and I'll just activate the tensioner here and then slip this last loop of the belt that's here up over the alternator pulley, and then that should do it. Alright, we'll go ahead and try this. I'm not sure if it's completely visible there, but okay, that should do it. Release that, and now I'll just kind of double check everything and make sure that the belt is properly aligned on all the different pulleys. Okay, now I'm going to start the engine and see what it sounds like. Hopefully the noise is gone. Well, everything seems to be running good, and the belt seems to be working the way it should. The tensioner isn't chattering anymore, so I think this job is done. I'll probably just take the car out for the customary test drive now. Okay, well the car seems to be running good. Not hearing any noise from the tensioner anymore, so that's good. And if you were wondering what the noise in the background was earlier in my video, well, we're going by it now. It's the Stafford Motor Speedway in Stafford, Connecticut on a Friday night. So thanks for watching the video, and hopefully it was able to help you out. So.